On a night covered with lightning, the day of awakening had arrived, and in the S-rank Death Lair, the oldest of existences, the first S-rank dungeon appeared on the Blue Star, and for decades, the Death Lair remained unconquered. Countless powerful warriors met their deaths there, but this time, Su Ming challenged the Death Lair alone and slew the strongest god-level aberrant beast. However, the people who were also there wanted Su Ming to stop clinging to life and hand over the divine artifact. One of the guys calls Su Ming the god of massacre and warns that his luck has run out. Another guy emphasizes that because Su Ming is a hero of humanity, they will give him a quick death, and that he should just say where he hid the divine artifact. Su Ming grips his sword and, while releasing power, comments that he never imagined everyone there would ambush him at the exact moment he cleared the dungeon just to steal the divine artifact. So he wants to know if that had been their plan from the beginning. Zhang Tang steps forward while equipping his powerful weapon. Then, he raises it high and asks Su Ming to hand over the divine artifact, stressing that, for the sake of their past brotherhood, he will not eliminate him. Having said that, he laughs and emphasizes that he will only destroy his powers. Su Ming also laughs and comments that he thinks he must have gone blind, because since he was 18 years old, he had always treated Zhang Tang as a brother, fighting side by side all these years that have passed. Then he says that he did not see how poisonous he truly is. Having said that, he raises his sword and begins to release great power. Su Ming also comments that if they want to test the power of the Ring of Defiance, then they should all try to take it, but he stresses that he doubts any of them have what it takes to do so. One of Zhang Tang's lackeys is surprised and comments that the power he is feeling is undeniably that of a divine artifact. Another says there is no time to lose, and that everyone should eliminate Su Ming once and for all and search for the divine artifact he hid. But Zhang Tang says that Su Ming currently has the power of the divine artifact, and because of that, he thinks they cannot simply act impulsively. Yet even so, he knows the plan is one step away from completion. At that moment, someone appears above calling out to Su Ming, who in turn is confused by what he is seeing. There is already a woman heading toward him. As soon as she reaches the ground, she hugs Su Ming, and he wants to know what she is doing there. She says that she heard someone was conspiring against him, and, because of that, she was very worried. Su Ming smiles and comments that he is fine since he has already obtained the divine artifact. Then he looks ahead and stresses that everyone there are partners, but emphasizes that he only did not understand one thing since Zhang Tang's group discovered his exact location. At that moment, the woman lands a critical blow on Su Ming, who in turn cannot believe that she did that and asks why. Zhang Tang becomes excited, shouting that the plan was a success, and informs that the final catalyst is already in place, and that, therefore, they should activate the imprisonment formation. And as soon as they activate it, a magic circle appears around Su Ming, who is completely perplexed, since he knows that the cursed seal he is seeing belongs to Ren Xiaoman, but wonders if she betrayed him a long time ago. Zhang Tang says that what Su Ming is witnessing is the imprisonment formation they prepared just for him, and that he can no longer channel powers. Ren Xiaoman apologizes to Su Ming and informs that, to be honest, she only stayed with him because of Zhang Tang. Then, while her ability continues to take effect, she says that when she saw that he awakened a 9-star talent, she knew she could simply use him to obtain the divine artifact. Su Ming becomes furious and starts shouting and trying to break the imprisonment formation. However, Zhang Tang tells his lackeys to attack the MC immediately, until a skeletal arm emerges from the ground, and another woman appears, conjuring her summons and blocking everyone's advance. Su Ming is surprised to see who it is, and asks what she is doing there. Ji Yao turns around and asks Su Ming not to give up, saying that he cannot let despicable cowards obtain the divine artifact. Zhang Tang shouts that another one has appeared seeking to be eliminated, then informs that there are dozens of masters there, and that not even an emperor descending from the heavens could save them. Having said that, everyone charges forward again. Zhang Tang advances with full force, saying that those who dare block his path will be eliminated. Su Ming shouts asking Ji Yao to take care of her flank. However, as soon as she realizes something, she is attacked by Zhang Tang, who tells her not to take it personally. The MC cannot believe that his friend was attacked. Zhang Tang goes to Su Ming and emphasizes that this is not the time for him to waste time worrying about others. Then, he points his celestial weapon at his face and makes it clear that he will also be eliminated. While Su Ming tries at all costs to break free from the imprisonment formation, Zhang Tang once again asks him to hand over the divine artifact and explains that he might consider sparing him. Su Ming becomes extremely furious, and, after managing to break some parts of the chains of the imprisonment formation, calls everyone bastards and activates his divine explosion technique. Zhang Tang jumps back to avoid being hit by the explosion, and one of the lackeys comments that the power they just witnessed is a divine-level technique. Su Ming, while his entire body is badly injured, goes to Ji Yao and asks why she appeared, saying that he failed her so many times. Ji Yao places her hand on the MC's face and with great difficulty speaking, says that if they have to die, then she thinks they will die together. However, Out of nowhere, a sword falls from the heavens, stabbing fiercely into the ground. And while everyone watches it, Su Ming picks up his friend in his arms and says that on that day, he, the god of massacre, swears completely that if he is reborn, he will hunt all of them to the ends of the world. Ren Xiaoman asks what the MC is trying to do. Zhang Tang is surprised and explains that it seems Su Ming is trying to drag the divine artifact back to the death lair with him. And while Su Ming stands at the edge of a cliff, Zhang Tang shouts for his lackeys to stop him and take the divine artifact. However, the MC jumps off the cliff, and while he is falling with his friend, he tells Zhang Tang that if he really wants the ring, then he should go try to get it. At that moment, the divine artifact begins to shine intensely, and after some time, the MC sees a glow and wonders if he is dead, until, upon waking up, he wonders where he is. Amid many people, a guy is laughing and announcing that at the 127th awakening ceremony of the first Xuanzong Academy, the student Wang Qiang successfully changed professions, being a life-type enchanter profession with an innate 3-star attribute. The people around comment that most of the awakened at the ceremony are not combat professions. Su Ming is intrigued to learn that he is at the awakening ceremony. Then he thinks that he is feeling a familiar sensation. Next, as he looks around more carefully, he wonders if he has gone back in time to when he was 18 years old on the day of the awakening ceremony. For he clearly remembers that the student who just awakened, the chubby Wang Qiang, in his past life was also an enchanter. And he remembers well that the next to awaken should be Li Songyang, who successfully awakened the combat profession of warrior with an innate 2-star attribute, while Qian Yu failed to awaken, and Song Li successfully awakened the profession of combat mage. Thus, the person responsible for presenting the ceremony announces that the next one, the student Li Songyang, had a successful awakening and that the profession is warrior with an innate 2-star attribute. Then he announces that Qian Yu unfortunately failed to awaken, and finally, Song Li, who had a successful awakening, being of the combat mage profession. The guy who had regained consciousness thinks that it truly happened just as he remembered. Then, he becomes happy to know that he is truly back. And as he recalls what happened in his past, he reflects that this second chance was the will of the heavens to rewrite all of his regrets, until the students become astonished by what they are seeing. Zhang Tang is awakening a hidden combat profession, and after successfully completing the awakening, he becomes the magic hammer warrior, possessing an innate attribute level of 8 stars. One person comments that the first hidden combat profession has appeared. Another emphasizes that this was already expected of Zhang Tang, the young master of the Zhang family, since his father is a war emperor and his mother a magic warrior. The MC keeps thinking about Zhang Tang. Then, while the presenter congratulates him and says that Xuanjing Academy has produced an 8-star genius right at the beginning of the year, someone taps the MC on the back and comments that he was there all this time. He turns around in surprise. Su Ming sees that it is Ji Yao, and she comments that she has been looking for him for a while. Then she asks why Su Ming looks surprised. He replies that it is nothing, and that he just wanted to congratulate her in advance. Ji Yao does not quite understand and asks why he is congratulating her. Su Ming remembers what happened in his past life. Then he replies that she will understand when she goes up on stage. At that moment, the presenter calls for Ji Yao, and she is quite surprised to learn that it is already her turn. After she arrives at the spot to see whether she will awaken successfully, the presenter asks her to place her hand on the celestial star. As soon as she brings her hand closer, she becomes intrigued by something. The presenter becomes excited, commenting that another hidden profession has appeared. Having said that, he announces that Ji Yao has awakened a hidden combat profession, that of a necromancer, with an innate level of 7 stars. The students go crazy upon learning this, and comment that the academy is extremely impressive that year. The MC smiles and thinks that it is exactly as he remembered, and that next it will be his turn. Thus, the presenter calls for Su Ming. The people comment that after witnessing 2 awakenings of hidden professions, they believe a third one is impossible. In addition to knowing that Su Ming, from Class 1, is an orphan, the MC keeps in mind that in a world dominated by the awakened on Blue Star, the Dragon Country, decades ago, after the Day of Awakening, everyone who turns 18 can change professions by participating in the awakening ceremony, becoming one of the awakened who change the face of the world and possess the power to bend the rules, along with wealth and equipment capable of changing destiny. However, at the same time, they must face gigantic beasts and terrible calamities, as well as countless challenges. Su Ming, as he stands before the celestial star to see whether he will awaken or not, reflects that in his past life, as an orphan, he survived with help and scholarships, and that on the day of the awakening ceremony, he was fortunate enough to be blessed by the heavens, since a celestial phenomenon also appeared at the time. For he knew that in the end, he awakened with an innate attribute of 9 stars, the legendary profession, that of the god of slaughter. Thus, he places his hand on the celestial star and thinks that he will make everyone see him with different eyes. At that moment, the presenter begins to look extremely surprised upon seeing the type of energy then wonders whether it will be the birth of a genius with an innate attribute of 9 stars or more. The people around are also dumbfounded and soon want to know whether it is truly possible for someone to awaken another hidden profession. Su-ming thinks that he needs to feel the runes again, but ends up becoming quite surprised and intrigued since he is seeing the divine artifact, the divine ring of rebellion. Then, he really wants to know whether the artifact accompanied him on the journey back in time, until he becomes even more intrigued by a system screen in front of him, informing that the strongest Godslayer system has successfully bound itself, and that the system has bound a new profession to the MC. With that, the awakening is complete, and the mythical profession of the God of the Sword has been obtained. Su-ming reflects on the mythical profession of the God of the Sword that he has just obtained, and then begins to see an enormous sword-shaped form emerging from the celestial star. The presenter, extremely surprised, comments that for such a phenomenon to appear, he wonders what the hell the MC is changing professions into. One of the students comments that he thinks that if it is a combat profession, it would be quite incredible, and that if it is a life profession, it would be a complete tragedy, until another student asks if his friend is stupid because a phenomenon like the one they are witnessing could never be a life profession. Zhang Tang becomes intrigued by something and, observing Su-ming carefully, wonders why he is not moving, while Su-ming is thinking that the profession awakened this time is that of the God of the Sword and not that of the God of Slaughter, as in his past life. And, while he clicks on the golden system, he knows that it is something different from his previous life. After the MC places his fingerprint on the system, it informs that he has been identified and that the target Su-ming has been confirmed. Then it informs that the awakened profession is that of the God of the Sword and that the golden talent is the sublimation of all things. Su-ming is surprised by this golden talent, since he has in mind that this is even greater than the 9-star profession level he awakened in his past life. Thus, he smiles and thinks that if this is really the case, he believes he should surpass his past life God of Slaughter. Then he starts interacting with the system, and it informs that it will open the skill interface for Su-ming, but soon reports that no skills have been awakened. The MC cannot believe this, and begins to search like a madman through his system to see if he has at least one skill. The people around start wanting to know what Su-ming is doing there, since he seems nervous. Desperate, the MC realizes that he does not have any skills and wonders what the difference is compared to before awakening and whether the system is mocking him. Then the system informs that the MC will be receiving feedback and that it will continue to guide him. However, an error occurs as identification of the ring is required. Su-ming becomes intrigued when he sees a ring appear in his hand, which soon begins to glow, and the system notifies that the divine ring of rebellion has been successfully identified. A huge radiance begins to emerge and grows increasingly stronger. People comment that the fluctuation is extremely intense. The person responsible for presenting the awakened, extremely surprised, asks whether the awakening is complete until he becomes completely shocked upon seeing that the MC's innate talent is an astonishing 10 stars. Thus, he informs everyone that Su-ming's profession change is to a hidden profession, that of sword controller. The students are stunned to see that the innate attribute is 10 stars, since they know that this is the talent level of the top-ranked individual. Another student comments that he thought Zhang Tang's 8-star magic hammer warrior was already terrifying, but now there is a 10-star level. The old man comments that the year they are in is truly a year of developing talents for the academy, since not only have several students with hidden professions appeared, but there is also a chosen of the heavens with a 10-star innate attribute. He also emphasizes that although the potential of the sword controller profession is not so outstanding within the swordsman category, Su-ming possesses a 10-star innate attribute talent, and he believes that he will definitely have limitless potential in the future. Then the director says that he has decided to reward the student Su-ming with a set of cultivation assistance items. And as he walks among the students, Su-ming hears various things. One of them is that someone thinks the sword controller is a waste of innate talent, since the sword controller is considered the very bottom among the swordsman category. In addition, the swordsman category is inherently a close-range profession, while the sword controller can operate both at close and long range, needing to cultivate both physical and magical attacks. And that although it can use long-range attacks, this causes the original close-range cultivation resources of the swordsman to be divided, making combat power very mediocre, being a completely weak profession. Su-ming only thinks that, in their eyes, the sword controller is just trash, until Ji Yao runs over to her friend and offers her congratulations. The MC comments that he is also very happy for her and congratulates her. Ji Yao says that all the students are talking nonsense, since she thinks that being able to awaken a 10-star talent makes Su-ming truly amazing, and that although the sword controller profession is a bit weaker in the early stages, she believes that with her friend's talent it will definitely not be a problem. He thanks her and says that he did not take the other's words seriously. Then he says that their reaction is exactly what he wanted. At that moment, the director calls for Ren Xiaoman. Zhang Tang comments that he is sure she will succeed, just like many other students. Ji Yao comments that Xiaoman is very popular, since that was already expected of the school beauty. However, upon seeing the MC leave without saying anything, she says that the ceremony is not over yet. He replies that he is not the least bit interested in the result, since he has in mind that in his past life this woman used his talent and in the end did not hesitate to betray him. And while she goes to learn her awakening result, Su Ming thinks about the words he said before, in which he stated that he would take revenge for being betrayed. Upon arriving at the city center, he thinks that in this life everything about daily life seems unchanged except for his awakened profession. Then he sees in his system the total concealment skill, capable of hiding or rewriting one's own information, such as equipment, profession, and skills. Su Ming thinks about this skill, since he has in mind that this is one of the 4 skills he brought from his past life. Then, he remembers the ring and keeps observing it in his hand. Then the system informs that it will be loading the divine artifact Ring of Rebellion, and, after loading, informs that the MC has inherited part of the abilities of the God of Slaughter profession. Su Ming becomes confused about his new God of the Sword profession having abilities of a God of Slaughter. Then, he checks his status, currently having 10 points in strength, 10 in constitution, 10 in agility, 10 in spirit, and 10 in luck, being at level 1. His profession is God of the Sword, of legendary grade and unique in the world. His talent is the sublimation of all things, and his skills are God of Slaughter Strike, Total Concealment, Divine Shadow Step, and Eye of Perception. The MC reflects that a common man is innocent, but possessing a jade ring becomes a crime, and that to avoid being used by others again like in his past life, it is because his current strength is still insufficient. Thus, since the 10-star talent cannot be hidden, he concludes that he must hide the information about his God of the Sword profession and that he will firmly seize this chance to be reborn. Then he thinks that according to his past life's experience, on the day after the awakening ceremony ends, the Novice Dungeon challenge will arrive. However, he knows that the Novice Dungeon is not a challenge, and that therefore, to level up faster and obtain better equipment, he must challenge the most difficult boss he has in mind. But before that, he needs to get his hands on a good weapon first. Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel, Jiang Tang and Ren Xiaoman are kissing. Then she comments that he is very bad, since the awakening ceremony had barely ended, and he was already taking her to a place like that. Jiang Tang asks her not to mention the awakening ceremony, because Su Ming completely stole his spotlight. Ren Xiaoman asks him not to be angry, but comments that although that Su Ming is just a sword controller, the attributes he awakened are very high, and that he will definitely have great value of use in the future. Jiang Tang becomes confused and asks what she is trying to say. Ren Xiaoman takes out her phone and asks him to take a look. Jiang Tang becomes quite surprised by what he sees. She then comments that if they lure the MC a little, she thinks he will definitely bite the bait and be useful to them in the future. After a few hours in the city center, the MC arrives at a place where a woman welcomes him and informs that this is the weapon shopping area on the 12th floor and wishes the customers a pleasant shopping experience. As soon as he enters, Su Ming looks around and thinks that it seems the awakening ceremony of that year at the nearby schools has already ended, since the awakened students are all there preparing for the novice dungeon test the next day. Su Ming hears a student desperately wanting a weapon, but his friend tells him to forget it, since as newly awakened students, they would have no way to buy such an expensive weapon, and that they should just use their awakened abilities to work like dogs and earn money in the future. The MC then sees several people in front of a sword, saying that it is the Tyrant's Frost Sword, which was recently forged by a high-tier player. But even so, they still cannot believe that its market price is 1 million coins. Su Ming walks along and thinks that he knows this weapon is fake, because he remembers it from his past life, and that the gang of merchants who sold these counterfeits were all arrested, until he hears someone asking him to wait. A woman, accompanied by several bodyguards, wants to know if the MC is Su Ming. He becomes intrigued and immediately wants to know who she is. She takes out a card and says that she has not introduced herself yet, then says that her name is Jiang Lan and that she is the vice director of the Jiang'an conglomerate. Su Ming takes her business card and, after observing it for a bit, comments that he thinks he knows her from somewhere. Jiang Lan calls to the MC once again and says that on behalf of the Jiang'an conglomerate, she will cover all of his expenses there that day, but that she hopes he can do a favor. Su Ming, suspicious, wants to know what kind of favor it would be. She asks one of her bodyguards to take out a photograph, and he shows the phone to the MC to take a look. Jiang Lan says that the girl Su Ming is seeing is her younger sister, Jiang Yuncheng, and that she studies at the same school as him. Then she says that her sister also awakened successfully earlier, and that she has thoroughly investigated the news about the MC awakening a 10-star talent, because she thinks that with his talent, the novice dungeon the next day should not be very difficult for him. Thus, Jiang Lan emphasizes that she is sure Su Ming is also aware that only those who have recently changed professions can enter the novice dungeon, so she hopes that he can join her younger sister and protect her while she completes the challenge in the novice dungeon. He thinks about it, but soon replies that he refuses, that he is not interested, and walks away. Jiang Lan cannot believe it and emphasizes that as long as he agrees, he can choose any weapon in that shop, because she thinks that as a poor student who has just awakened, he should not refuse such an offer. Thus, Su Ming points to a sword and says that he wants that one, then says that it is the Tyrant's Frost Sword, worth 1 million. Jiang Lan is completely stunned and comments that he is trying to make things difficult, then asks whether the MC really thinks it is worth 1 million with its current stats. Su Ming asks whether she was not the one who said he could choose whatever he wanted, because he thinks that if she is not willing, it is better to forget the deal. Then he comments that there are many things for which one cannot take shortcuts with mere financial power, so he asked Jiang Lan to have her sister do her utmost to prepare for the novice dungeon test the next day. While Jiang Lan stops the bodyguards from doing anything to the MC, she comments that this is quite interesting and that they will consider their offense against the MC this time. And after they leave and the crowd realizes that Su Ming messed with the Jiang'an conglomerate people, he becomes intrigued by something, since he is seeing a message from someone. Upon opening it, he sees that it is from Ren Xiaoman. In the message, she asks whether he did not always say that he liked her, so he has ended up changing his mind, and she wants to see him that night on the rooftop of the school building. Su Ming keeps in mind that this is the same message from his past life, and that although he did not awaken the god of slaughter profession this time, Ren Xiaoman really has not changed at all. He already knows that at the same time in his past life, he had agreed and would see her there. After that, Su Ming goes to a place and asks permission from a saleswoman. She immediately asks how she can help him. He asks whether what he is seeing are raw sword stones that can randomly produce high-quality sword weapons. The saleswoman replies that yes, and says that the raw weapon stones there have a chance to produce silver-grade weapons. Then she emphasizes that the MC should understand that everything is based on probability, since most raw stones only produce lower-grade weapons, and that therefore, she hopes he will consider carefully before buying. Su Ming comments that this is exactly what he wants. The saleswoman becomes a little confused upon hearing that. The MC approaches the raw stones and explains that compared to buying a silver-grade weapon at a high price that will soon become obsolete, betting on a stone there for a cheap price is the most suitable option. Su Ming reflects that instead of calling it a gamble, he thinks he should say that he can see the data inside the raw stones, since all of this is thanks to the second ability left to him by his god of slaughter from his past life, which is called Eye of Perception, because his eyes possess the true power of perception, capable of perceiving the fundamental information of all matter. Thus, after analyzing each of the stones, he picks one up in his hand and concludes that it will be that one, since compared to ordinary silver-grade weapons that sell for hundreds or thousands of advent coins, obtaining one at that moment for only 50 coins is an absolute bargain, especially since he knows this is perfectly suitable now that he has returned to being a poor student. At that moment, a guy appears at the door wanting to know if the MC is not the kid who just rejected the Jiang'an conglomerate. Then, more people enter the room, and a guy wants to know if what the MC has in his hands is not one of those useless raw weapon stones used for gambling on weapons. The blonde guy comments that he thought the MC was some kind of big shot with a lot of confidence, but seeing him reject a favor from a conglomerate just to mess around with useless stones, he thinks that in the end, he is just another idiot. Su Ming takes a deep breath and thinks that he knows the blonde guy and that his name is Yang Ding, the spoiled brat who specialized in bullying freshmen in his past life. After reflecting on this, the MC calls out to them and asks whether they dare to bet 5,000 advent coins that he can obtain a silver-grade weapon. They look at each other for a brief moment and soon start laughing, saying that the MC really is a complete idiot. Yang Ding says that these types of raw weapon stones have a 99.99% chance of producing trash, and that he has never seen someone who likes giving away money so much. Su Ming comments that they will see who is giving money to whom. People passing by hear them making the bet, and it does not take long for many people to gather there to watch the MC open the raw stones. Yang Ding makes it clear that he will see whether a poor bastard like the MC can really come up with 5,000 coins. Su Ming activates his Eye of Perception and visualizes the sword inside the stone, then shouts for it to come out. Yang Ding and his friend are dumbfounded by what they are seeing, and as soon as the MC grabs the sword, the other people also become very surprised. The system informs that the acquired weapon is the Black Iron Crimson Edge Sword, of silver level and low grade, but its special affix is Blood Drinker, since after the sword injures a monster, it can absorb the drained blood to heal the wielder's wounds. Su Ming holds it firmly and comments that the sword is very good. Then he thinks that it is perfect for the meeting that night. Yang Ding, still very surprised, comments that the MC was really lucky, and the MC in turn comments again that the sword is not bad, since it even has a lifesteal effect that will save him the trouble of needing a healer. Having said that, he points the tip of the sword at the blonde guy and emphasizes that a bet is a bet, and that therefore he will take Yang Ding's 5,000 advent coins. After Yang Ding transfers the amount he lost in the bet, he comments to the MC that he will remember him very well. Su Ming comments that next time, he should not make bets with people so easily. The saleswoman watches the stats and comments that it has been years since someone there managed to obtain a weapon from a raw stone. The MC calls her and says that he also needs a matching scabbard, and that, if he is not mistaken, it should cost 5,000 coins. She replies yes, and asks the MC to follow her. Thus, Su Ming buys a silver-grade scabbard, whose effect is to reduce weapon durability consumption by 50%. After placing the sword inside the scabbard, the MC thinks that now, with the scabbard, he can greatly reduce the weapon's durability consumption, since he does not have sufficient funds to replace his sword at the moment. At that moment, the system asks whether the MC wants to open the hidden weapon materialization function. He replies that not yet, and thinks that he will take the sword and raise it by one more grade. After a few hours, while walking through the park, Su Ming thinks that in this life, although he awakened as a god of the sword, he does not have a single usable class skill, but that in the class talent tree there is a very powerful original talent, sublimation of all things, since it can improve the quality of any loot, such as combat skills, equipment, scrolls, and others, and that any item can only be sublimated or indirectly sublimated once. Thus he knows that just by having this talent alone, it is truly worthy of the golden grade class that the god of the sword represents. And, after using sublimation of all things, the system informs that the weapon's sublimation was successful and it gained the bloodlust effect. Now the weapon's name is Zhuan Steel, bloodthirsty sword, of high-quality silver grade. The blood drinker effect causes that after the sword strikes a target, it can absorb the target's blood through attacks or contact to heal the wielder's wounds. The bloodlust effect causes that after killing a monster with the sword, all of the wielder's stats are temporarily increased by 5 points for 30 seconds. Su Ming thinks that after eliminating an enemy, he will be able to gain a temporary buff that increases all of his stats. So he decides to open the hidden weapon materialization function and concludes that now, the novice dungeon the next day will be much easier. After that, a few hours pass and night arrives. Su Ming goes to the place he had arranged to meet Ren Xiaoman and equips his sword. She soon notices his presence and, upon turning around, comments that he finally arrived, but points out that he is a bit late. However, she ends up becoming confused by what she is seeing, since Su Ming is attacking her. Ren Xiaoman screams loudly, and seeing that Su Ming merely struck the sword into the ground, really wants to know what he is doing. The MC takes a deep breath and then says that he is there for revenge, saying this while thinking about what happened in his past life. Ren Xiaoman asks what he is talking about and comments that she accepted his confession. Then she shows some messages they exchanged and comments that it was because of that she took the initiative to ask him out, and that it was he who wanted to date her. Su Ming remains silent for a moment and then says that this was in his past life. Then he thinks that she, who was recognized as the school beauty, had always been a prominent figure there, and that, as an orphan who never received attention from others while growing up, he never thought he would have the chance to interact with her, and that he also certainly never thought that on the second day after the awakening ceremony, she would take the initiative to show concern. And from that day on, he received her concern, which was the attention he had longed for his entire life. Su Ming also begins to recall the confession, the dating, the intimacy, and the interactions, and concludes that those days were the times he cherished the most. Thus, he shouts that it was all fake. Then he says that he knows everything about her dirty dealings with Jiang Tang and that she was only trying to use his talent and abilities. Ren Xiaoman is surprised, but asks the MC not to dare speak nonsense. Su Ming comments that she knows very well whether he is talking nonsense or not, and that the beautiful and graceful Ren Xiaoman everyone sees is a lie, and that in reality, she is just a vain, despicable, shameless bitch. Ren Xiaoman becomes furious and shouts, wanting to know what he knows. Then she calls him an orphan and makes it clear that if his talent were not worth something, he would not even have the chance to speak to anyone, and that she will not let him get away after daring to call her a bitch. Su Ming tells her to go ahead, but says that he fears she should be more concerned about how her story with Jiang Tang will affect the pure and innocent image she has. Ren Xiaoman becomes even more furious, grabs the MC's sword, and as she lunges at him, Su Ming comments that things are happening exactly as in his past life. She becomes confused when she sees a red glow around the sword. Su Ming comments that apparently she really likes sneak attacks, since he was already expecting this. Thus, he activates the sword's blood drinker ability, since after the sword locks onto a target, it can absorb the target's blood through attacks or contact to heal the wielder's wounds. As the sword's power rushes toward her, the MC says that the trap was set for her from the very beginning when he made her the target. Ren Xiaoman is struck squarely in the face, and she screams loudly in pain. Then she screams saying that her beautiful face has been disfigured. Su Ming comments that she ended up doing that to herself. Then he makes it clear that at that moment, it is the time for his revenge and that he will have Jiang Tang eliminate her. However, he begins to recall some moments with her in his past life. Because of that, He unequips his sword, and, as he leaves, and she trembles on the ground, asks Ren Xiaoman to go back and tell Zhang Tang that he is welcome to come settle accounts, and that she should consider the cut she received as something caused by him. Before leaving, Su Ming thinks that this cut also severed that concern he once cherished. At that same moment, the MC receives a message asking him to accept the gift. The gift in question is a marrow strengthening pill, a combat gear package, and 10,000 advent coins. The gift was sent by Director Wang, who also left a message saying that the gift is a newbie package exclusively for the MC, since he possesses a 10-star talent, and that he hopes he can make good use of the gift and achieve excellent results in the novice dungeon. After that, on the next day at 6 in the morning, Su Ming is observing the marrow strengthening pill that the director gave him and thinks that the old man is quite generous. And as soon as he consumes it, he thinks that perhaps the old man feels pity that he awakened a 10-star talent only to take the sword controller class and wants to help compensate for that. The system informs that the Constitution attribute has gained an increase of 10 points and an additional 100 experience points. With that, Su Ming is promoted to a level 2 class holder and gains 10 free attribute points. Then the system congratulates the MC for reaching level 2. Su Ming is now at level 2 with some attributes increased. And because of that, the passive talent origin sword body is activated, where the heart is the source, a natural sword intent, and Su Ming can learn all sword type skills, ignoring all restrictions. Thus, the MC thinks that this was already expected from his 10-star golden talent, since he can learn a new talent as early as level 2. Then he becomes confident and reflects that he can hardly wait to show everyone what he has in the novice dungeon later. After that, in the novice dungeon area of the first Xuanzong Academy, some students begin to arrive, and the MC does not like this very much, since they are calling him to form a team. Su Ming wonders whether this bunch of people were not belittling his class the day before, then apologizes to everyone and says that he already has his team. Ji Yao hears this and immediately becomes anxious, wanting to know if he really already has a team. Then she says that she arrived early, hoping to be the first to form a team with him. Su Ming looks to the side and softly tells her that it is not true. Then he explains that what he is challenging is not for ordinary contribution rewards, and that if she formed a team with him, he would be worried that she might get hurt. Having said that, he emphasizes that he plans to challenge everything alone. She is surprised and comments that she understands. At that moment, a guy approaches asking for permission and wanting to know if the MC is the student Su Ming. Then he introduces himself, saying that his name is Yan Zi from class 4, and that his awakened talent is the 9-star demon hunting ranger, and that he was wondering if the MC would be willing to join his team. While Su Ming thinks that he remembers this guy from his past life, Ji Yao answers no to Yan Zi. Then she says that Su Ming has already formed a team with her and that he should not bother them anymore. Yanzi comments that he did not know that and soon apologizes for bothering them. The MC realizes that Ji Yao is quite reliable and then thinks that the dungeon is about to open. At that moment, the director asks for the students' attention and announces that the 127th Novice Dungeon Challenge has officially begun. However, a bit awkwardly, he offers his most sincere apologies and says that he overslept and could not go to the site to cheer for them, and that he can only do a live broadcast from his home to explain the rules of the Novice Dungeon to them. He explains that the one-day Novice Dungeon Challenge is a trial that the newly awakened of that year must go through, and that each student has already been registered, so they can be identified as soon as they enter the dungeon. He also explains that inside the dungeon, each challenger will gain points and settlement rewards based on their individual contributions in the challenges, and that to ensure a high survival rate, he thinks it is better for them to challenge the dungeon in teams, and that they only need to complete the dungeon challenge within the day to finish the first dungeon challenge of their lives after awakening. Then he calls to them once again and comments that the moment that decides their fate has arrived. At that moment, Ji Yao notices that Su Ming has disappeared. The director comments that he does not want to delay them any longer and announces that the dungeon is officially open. As soon as the director finishes saying this, something happens at the entrance, and the students begin wondering if someone has already entered. Others comment that they also saw someone entering and that it was the 10-star student, Su Ming. Already inside the dungeon, the MC thinks that this novice dungeon seems very familiar because it suddenly makes him nostalgic, since back then, he was both afraid and excited, recklessly running around just to gain more contribution points. At that moment, a voice announces to the new class holders of Blue Star that the multiversal massacre is about to begin, and that the place there is full of danger and opportunity. Then it informs them that to leave there and receive the rewards, in addition to obtaining sufficient contribution value by killing the regular boss. There is another more difficult method, a method that the MC has in mind, and that this time he will choose the hardest challenge, which is to kill the supreme hidden boss. After that, in some part of the F-level Raging Tide Forest, Su Ming passes through the portal and, upon looking around, reflects that the novice dungeon map is random every year, and that the place is a completely different map from when he was in the same dungeon in his past life. In addition, all dungeon portal spawn points are random, so he knows that route planning is different for each challenger, and that the monsters he may encounter in the dungeon are also different. After thinking about this, and walking a bit through the area, Su Ming soon sees a monster, and thinks that it is an elite level one, but that although it is immobile like a tree, if its vines lock onto a target, the person will be dragged into the burning hollow on the monster's head and roasted. Thus, he remembers that his goal is to challenge the hidden boss, and therefore, he should try to avoid these troublesome monsters. And while he locks his reference point on the map, he thinks that since the reason he rushed to be the first in the dungeon was to recognize the route in advance and find what he needs to challenge the hidden boss. Although he knows the map changes, the way to fight the boss does not change, and that if more people enter later, it will be much harder to gather the items. After thinking about this, he dashes at full speed from tree to tree toward his objective. As soon as it reaches 7:30 in the morning, a girl passes through the portal, and one of her team members comments that it does not seem like there are other challengers nearby, until they are surprised to hear a very loud sound. Soon they see someone running amid the dust. That person is desperate, screaming for help, and they become even more frightened since the guy is being chased by a giant frenzied blood rat, and the others shout for everyone to split up and run immediately. Outside the dungeon, the system reports the dungeon status in real time, and that at 7:31 in the morning, 3 challengers were gnawed to death by a frenzied blood rat, and that the strongest among them was a 6-star talent awakened, Li Dabiao. Ji Yao, very surprised, comments that she has not even formed a team yet, and challengers are already being eliminated inside the dungeon. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, the girl from before is running desperately, and soon realizes that she ended up separating from her friends. Then she opens the map to see where she is, because she thinks she is completely lost, until she becomes very frightened upon hearing a very loud noise. And as soon as she turns to see what it is, she sees a shadow atop a tree of a very large creature, which, as it gets closer, she discovers is a monkey monster, which in turn lunges at the girl. She becomes desperate and screams for help. At that moment, a sword is raised and flies out, completely retaliating against the monkey monster, and Su Ming appears. Moments earlier, one of the competitors was quite frightened as he was about to be attacked by an elite-level grizzly bear, but he managed to run away screaming and wondering why he had run into an elite monster right at the beginning. However, his friend was not so lucky and was hit head-on. The bear continued eliminating competitors, and soon some swamp hunters appeared on the battlefield, followed by tracking dogs. One of the competitors shouted that he would make a channel call and reported that the transport point at the 9 o'clock position on the map was surrounded by monsters and requested immediate support. And while emphasizing that the 6 o'clock position also needed help, he failed to notice a draconized lizard approaching from behind. The members, while fighting various monsters, reported that the 11 o'clock position was also compromised, and that the monsters kept arriving without stopping. A girl, upon approaching a tree, saw one of her group friends defeated and immediately informed Central Command that her team of 5 urgently needed help. Afterward, she watched her friends all defeated on the ground and fell to her knees, and as her entire body trembled, she commented that she thought that if they had not been told to hide, things would be different. But at the same time, she knew that the dungeon had only started half an hour ago and the difficulty of the novice dungeon was already far too high. She then began to question whether newly awakened students could really challenge it and come out alive, until she became quite surprised, as she had just seen a student completely eliminate a huge creature so easily. As soon as Su Ming approached her, she commented that he seemed so strong. Then she remarked that he eliminated the monster in an instant and thanked him for saving her, but soon realized that the student in question was Su Ming of 10 stars. He looked back and said that he was just passing by and emphasized that he would not be able to save her a second time, since he believed that the monster that had just attacked was not yet completely eliminated. She became very frightened, wondering what he meant. However, she ran off desperately, shouting that she would go after reinforcements for him and hoping that he could hold on. Su Ming activated his Eye of Perception and saw that the monster was a level 3 mutant monkey king, and that the creature's ability was Slap. Thus, he concluded that it was no wonder the creature could survive continuous attacks from his silver-grade weapon in the rank F dungeon there. The Monkey King, as soon as it recovered from the attacks, charged at the MC, who was forced to retreat and thought that the creature's speed was not bad at all, but considered it would be a great opportunity for a contest, and recalled the abilities he had inherited from his past life. He activated the third inherited ability, Divine Shadow Step, an acceleration movement technique that increases speed by 50%, and at the moment it was activated, the MC became immune to all physical, magical, and spiritual attacks, and could not be targeted, but it consumed a large amount of stamina while active. After having his speed increased, Su Ming charged at high speed toward the Monkey King, which in turn tried to counterattack the MC, but he managed to jump at the last instant and soon appeared behind the enormous creature. The Monkey King immediately turned to try to land another blow, but Su Ming managed to dodge again. Now facing the creature, he commented that, apparently, there was no need for a contest. Having said that, he charged at the Monkey King, which could only watch the MC approaching at high speed. With little it could do, the creature was easily defeated, and Su Ming commented that he was already tired of playing around. Next, the MC saw in the system that he had successfully defeated the mutant Monkey King and had obtained loot, which was a low-grade linear/skill scroll. Su Ming pondered the acquired skill and reflected that, even though it was only low-grade, it was not bad for a novice dungeon. He becomes surprised when he receives a first blood notification. Then he sees the system message informing that the level 2 sword controller player completed the first kill of the mutant Monkey King in the Furious Tide Forest, and the title granted was First Blood. At the same time, all competitors receive the dungeon achievement notification and are quite surprised, wondering if a player really eliminated a monster successfully and on top of that a mutant. The system also notifies that the dungeon title reward grants all players in the dungeon a small healing potion. A girl, while hiding from a monster, takes the potion she received and thinks she is safe, since she truly needed to replenish her health. Back where the MC is, he begins to hear various people throughout the forest wanting to know if the sword controller really earned a title and whether this so-called sword controller is the student Su Ming. Some people respond that it is Su Ming, that 10-star sword controller, but other competitors emphasize that it cannot be him, since there are several sword controllers that year, when including neighboring cities. But that, in any case, someone completing the first kill proves that all newly awakened students have the strength to clear the dungeon. The MC does not like hearing any of this at all. Then he thinks that he forgot that the title system in the game would expose his strength, and because of that, he believes he will have to be more careful from now on, and use his total concealment ability to hide as much as possible. But he did not expect that even after half an hour of dungeon time, no player had eliminated a monster yet. Thus, he runs from where he is, but ends up facing several level 3 hungry wolves. Su Ming thinks this is perfect, since he has in mind that the wolf is one of the 3 classic mobs for novice leveling, so he believes he can test his new sword attack skill that he bought, especially because he knows he used his talent ability, All Things Sublimation, before, to improve the low-grade linear/skill scroll he obtained by eliminating the mutant monkey. His system soon informs him that the All Things Sublimation ability was activated and a new ability was obtained, which is Sword Unsheathing Slash, in which it is necessary to sheath the sword, focus the mind, and attack in a single strike. The wolves begin to howl and move even closer to the MC, who in turn wastes no time and tests his new ability, delivering a slash that goes straight toward the creatures. After eliminating the first hungry wolf and gaining experience points, the MC continues eliminating all of them, always gaining several experience points. After eliminating them all with his new ability, the system congratulates Su Ming, as he managed to gain enough experience points to reach level 9, in addition to obtaining the title Hungry Wolf Legend. Next, he looks around and thinks that, using the property of Sword Unsheathing Slash, which allows long-range attacks, he can farm all the low-level hungry wolves. Then he sheaths the sword and reflects that the energy generated accumulated over a certain period of time can be quite efficient. Thus, he concentrates even more, and, upon quickly unsheathing the sword, delivers another slash that goes toward the remaining hungry wolves. However, something blocks the attack, which leaves the MC quite surprised, since an enormous creature has just appeared and repelled his attack as if it were nothing. The creature that just appeared